Hey guys, Scott here. As is tradition with every new chapter in DBD, I will first go over the new perks, give my thoughts on them, and see how viable they will be for Killer and Survivor. And then today on stream, I'll spend the day just kind of playing the new Killer and getting the good first impressions of him, and we'll go from there. But first up, let's start with the perks. First on Trevor Belmont, who is a very handsome lad. First is Eyes of Belmont. When a gen is completed, the aura of the killer is revealed to you for 3 seconds. By itself, not a particularly incredible perk, but the second part, whenever a killer's aura is revealed for a specific amount of time, that time's increased by 2 seconds. So it's essentially Lethal Pursuer, which does the same thing on the killer side, but for Survivor now. It extends the duration of your aura reading, which could be really, really good. Now, this won't work with things like Blood Amber, for example, because Blood Amber has no set duration. It needs to be things that have a preset timing. It's not something that just you can activate and deactivate. So breaking the game with like Blood Amber, stuff like that, is not going to work. But, you know, things like Alert, I mean, any aura perk that's going to reveal them while they're chasing you or anything like that is going to be made significantly stronger when you have this as well. This is the kind of perk you actually kind of want to think a little bit for a build that you want to use with it. There's so much aura reading in the game now that I can think of a bunch of really, really good things you can do with this. But other than that, I think it's a pretty solid perk. It's not like super incredible or anything. It does have self-synergy with itself, so you have 5 seconds of aura reading whenever a generator is completed of where the killer is. That's fine. It's sort of like a Bitter Murmur type deal. But I think this has a lot of potential to be combined with other perks and make a pretty strong build, but nothing too game-breaking or insane. So overall, I like it, but it's not anything insane in my opinion. Next, Exaltation. Stunning the killer with a pallet upgrades your held item rarity to the next tier, then recharges 25% of that item's maximum charges. Your rarity upgrade is not kept if you escape, and also the perk has a 30-second cooldown. I think it's pretty interesting. The idea of upgrading your item mid-match is kind of cool. Now, you really got to go into the nitty-gritty of how actually useful is that, and the truth is, not very. The way that items have been nerfed over time, rightfully so for the most part, you know, if you go from a brown medkit to a purple medkit, it's not that crazy. I mean, it's certainly better, but it's not so much better to where, like before, if you went from a brown to a green medkit, your heal speed on yourself would increase by an insane amount. So items aren't broken enough anymore in terms of upgrade tiers for this to be incredible, and it's not like you can have a green key and then suddenly get a skeleton key with, you know, a Blood Amber on it or something. It's still just going to be a regular key. So, I mean, these will, you know, let you go from a yellow to a green flashlight, which will make it last longer. It'll let you go from a brown to a yellow and a yellow to a maybe Commodious toolbox, and that's great. But really, I think the main draw is the recharge. Being able to stun the killer and then recharge your items, that can be really useful basically no matter what. Doesn't matter what item you bring in. Even if you bring in Blood Amber with, you know, a key or a medkit to heal yourself or a toolbox to do gens, pretty much any item being recharged as you're being chased is just good. So the upgrading thing, I think, is kind of more of a meme than anything because the upgrades are not particularly amazing, and sometimes it might actually downgrade your item. For example, if you have a Commodious and then you upgrade to like an Alex's toolbox, that might actually be worse for you. So you got to like take that into account. But the recharging of the item is very good. And on killers that are susceptible to stuns because they have to swing through pallets and stuff like that, this is actually an insanely good perk. But against killers like, you know, I don't know, Spirit or Pyramid Head or Huntress or killers that you're not likely going to stun as much, it's not as good. So this is going to be really dependent on the killer that you go against, and against killers that you can easily stun, it's very good. Otherwise, you know, there are a good half the killers in the game now have some form of anti-loop that doesn't really let you do much of anything. So overall, I'd say this perk is situational, but interesting. I like the idea of upgrading. That just seems like kind of cool. Next, Moment of Glory. This perk activates after you open or rummage through 2 chests. When you become injured, you also become broken. Automatically heal 1 health state after 60 seconds, then the perk deactivates. So this is a one-time thing. What it essentially does is it applies a free syringe to you that takes much longer to actually activate, more than twice as long. And the requirement of opening 2 chests by itself would take bare minimum 20 seconds because it's 10 seconds per chest. So you're sort of like, why don't I just bring a med kit and heal in, you know, 24 seconds? It's kind of like, I don't really like get the point of that unless you have a specific build. Now, if you bring something like Appraisal with this, because it allows rummaging through chests too. So with Appraisal, you would open a chest in 10 seconds, you'd quickly rummage through it, and now you're good. Now the time efficiency is significantly better because you've only spent like 15 seconds doing this, and you're going to get a full heal out of it, which is much better than a med kit, and it also happens automatically, so it's a better syringe kind of at that point. But I don't know if I'd run this without something like appraisal, because without the rummaging in the same chest, you're going to spend so much time running to a chest, opening it, finding another one, running to the chest, opening it. Just bring a medkit at that point. It's just going to be more efficient. Bring a medkit with a syringe. It's more efficient. Both of these things can only be used once per match, so it's like, eh. But on a specific build that does involve chests specifically, this can actually be extremely useful. So I'd pair that with like appraisal and maybe overcome. So after you get hit, you get really far away. The killer's de-incentivized to chase you. Or if they see you get broken and want to make you not benefit from the perk, you've got a ton of distance with overcome now. So, think outside the box like that, and I think you can actually get some pretty good value from that perk overall. So overall, I think the survivor perks are pretty decent. Some are pretty situational, but I can see them all being useful in some way. Now let us go over the lad Dracula, basically just Astarion. And he also sounds like Matt Mercer again, which is funny. First up, Heex Wretched Fate. After one generator has been repaired, a random dull totem becomes a Hex totem and curses the Obsession. The Obsession suffers a 33% repair speed penalty. They also see this Hex's aura for 12 meters. The effect persists until the Hex totem is cleansed. So basically what this does is whenever a gen is completed, a random dull totem becomes a Hex totem, and that Hex totem is tied to the Obsession. That Obsession does gens way slower. I think this might be the single most significant slowdown effect in the entire game. It's more than pentimento even. Granted, it's only on one person, so it's not quite the same. And basically, the issue here is you have to think about what's going to be better, this or pentimento, because they kind of have the same effect, but this one happens more automatically. And frankly, nothing says you can't use both of them at the same time. Because, think about this. If you're on this and pentimento, when a gen gets completed, dull becomes a Hex. And now when that Hex gets broken, it can be relit into pentimento. So not only do you get the Obsession ridiculous slowdown, but once it's inevitably destroyed, you get pentimento on top of that, which is just going to be disgusting. I don't know if there are going to be changes to pentimento, but the fact that I'm thinking about this, they can be used together. The fact that they can be used together scares the shit out of me for playing Survivor. That seems like a dirty, dirty build, because having a 33% penalty, honestly, the strat might just be tank the hit. Let the Obsession do 33% slower gens for the rest of the game. Let him do heals and saves and stuff like that, and deny any other possible synergy going on here. Because if you start the pentimento loop, then you're going to be in so much trouble, because you're going to have the Obsession slow down, and once you cure that, now everybody is slowed down from pentimento, and then you're going to break it again, and then another gen is going to complete and make another dull totem. The whole process is going to repeat so many times. So yeah, this and pentimento scares the shit out of me. It honestly might need a nerf or some not interaction or something. I'm trying to think if I'm missing something here. A random dull totem becomes a Hex totem and curses the Obsession. No, I mean, if you have this and pentimento, that's like, I don't see anything that implies that that combo wouldn't work. So that's terrifying. I am not going to like that as Survivor. And honestly, it probably needs a nerf of some kind. Or pentimento needs a nerf of some kind or something. I don't know. The synergy between these two perks, in my opinion, is too strong. I am not feeling that. Next, the Human Greed. You see the auras of unopened chests and Survivor auras are revealed for 3 seconds when they enter an 8-meter range. You gain the ability to kick chests to close them, which is hilarious. The ability has a 60-second cooldown. Survivors unlock these chests 50% faster. So basically, this is sort of like Hex Undying when they run by a totem, their aura is revealed. This is when they run by a chest, their aura is revealed. Same kind of thing. Chests are usually in pretty prominent positions, usually next to generators or inside made buildings. So they're kind of placed in pretty good spots usually. And you can control the amount if you burn a coin or something like that. There's other chest-related perks coming out in this DLC, so other people might burn coins. So I'd imagine on release, this is going to get you a lot of free aura reading value. And even if they're actually looted, you can reclose it again, which will give the survivors another item, I assume. But it will also enable you to continue seeing auras everywhere. So I think because you can control this with shiny coins and bringing more chests in, that's actually a pretty good aura reveal perk that's going to give you fairly consistent random information. And I think that is just pretty solid overall. Even combine that with Lethal Pursuer or something, and you're going to be looking at some pretty decent information just at random times. Next, Dominance. The first time each totem and each chest is interacted with by a survivor, that totem or chest is blocked by the entity for 8 seconds. The auras of blocked totems and chests are revealed to you in white. So this is interesting because Hex Thrill of the Hunt used to have this effect on it. When you touched a totem that Thrill of the Hunt was protecting, it would create an explosion, and you would know that that totem was being broken. Then they removed that because they felt it was too strong, and now they've just added it back in with a different perk. However, this doesn't have the same totem slowdown in terms of like breaking a totem, so I guess it's a bit weaker in that regard, but it also applies to chests as well. So this is more for information, but for protecting totems on a Hex build, this is insanely good, as Thrill of the Hunt was. You have plenty of time to see where this is happening and go and interrupt the totem from being broken. On killers with high mobility like Hillbilly and Blight, it's a nightmare. So those, like, I'm thinking like Dominance, Pentimento, Wretched Fate is going to be extremely meta on killers with insanely good movement speed, because you will be hard pressed to actually break these totems, and even when you can break them, it's still not even bad because Pentimento will then replace the Wretched Fate. So I think Dominance is actually pretty solid as well. It basically fills the old niche of what Thrill of the Hunt used to do, and it also interacts with all of these new chest perks by letting you know when a survivor is interacting with those chests. It'll give you free information. So overall, I'd say these perks are really good. Wretched Fate is by far the best, almost to a broken extent when combined with Pentimento. The other two are pretty solid. Overall, I think the perks are all pretty impactful in some way. So I think they did a good job with the perks this chapter. I'm curious to see how they're going to change things, though, and I'm curious to see how this bad boy plays. But that is it for the perks. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.